Hello and welcome to COS Indiana Live as we bring you Roundtable. The Roundtable segment is presented here every fourth Monday of the month at 7 p.m. We'll be focusing on education and discussion of the topics and challenges we all face as we use the Constitution to save the Constitution. Join us now as we bring you COS Indiana Roundtable with our MC, John Ackerman.
Indiana Live Roundtable. I'm your host, John Ackerman. Starting this month, we have a new format for the Roundtable. The entire program will be in the Roundtable style, where our state leadership team, plus a different special guest each month, will address the leading polling topics that came up in the COS Indiana Live broadcasts of the last few Monday nights. This month, those leading topics are first, election integrity, which our roundtable team will address for several minutes, followed by activism, when we'll talk about what it means to be an activist and how best to make your voice heard. And finally, education. We'll explain why education is so important and give you some ideas on what you can do about it. Now, if you have any comments or questions about any of these topics, you can post them right now if you're watching live on Facebook or YouTube. Just click the comment button and enter your question. Plus, we have added the capability to take phone calls. So at any time during the program, you can call in and join the roundtable with your question or comment. The number to call is on the screen there. It's 317-426-8689. That's 317-426-8689. Also, you can email the roundtable at raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. That's raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. So after those three segments, we will conclude the roundtable by asking you to join Convention of States, and we will show you how to volunteer to help us make a difference. Before jumping into the first topic, let me ask you to help us grow the audience by clicking like and share, and by making a comment or asking a question. The Facebook and YouTube algorithms notice viewer responses. They know that something's going on, and then they show it to more of their users. So help us grow our audience by making a comment and by clicking those like and share buttons. And now I want to welcome our roundtable team. One by one, they're going to pop on the screen here with me. First of all is Rick Lyon, our event coordinator. Rick, you're new to the roundtable team. Welcome aboard. You are muted. You spoke, but I couldn't hear you.
Thanks, John. Glad to be here. Yep.
Okay, who's next? Here comes Ken Kashuba, our state communications coordinator. Welcome back, Ken.
Howdy, John.
Yeah. And here is Marty Wood, our Indiana legislative liaison. Welcome back, Marty. And this is Gary Harbaugh, our SD team. What does SD team mean, Gary?
I'm on the state director's team.
Oh,
it's good
wow.
to be here, John.
You're a big shot. And George Ward, our Indiana State Grassroots Coordinator.
That's right.
And here comes Dale Parrish, our State Director. And our special guest for this month is Cheryl Shopmeyer, our Region 7 Captain. Welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you for having me.
Give our viewers a little hint of where you are in the state. What part of Indiana is Region 7?
Well, I'm between Terre Haute and Bowling Green.
Okay. That gives
in
us
between Terre Haute and Bloomington. I'm sorry. I'm
Bloomington.
in
Okay.
Yes.
Well, okay. Okay. Well, that's very good. Well, our first topic is going to be election integrity. And we have a few questions that we're going to kick around the table here for a little bit. Cheryl, since you're the newest member here, ladies first, huh? I want to ask you, where does Indiana rank in the 50 states in terms of secure elections?
Well, one article showed that we were 14th, and I think Marty said there was another one that said 16th. I guess it depends on who you talk to. When I saw Holly Sullivan, the Secretary of State, she said it's one of the most secure areas in the country. So I guess it depends on who you talk to.
Okay, Marty, what did you know about that? Where does Indiana rank in the 50 states?
Well, I saw a ranking a while back as well, and I thought it was actually 19th. And it mentioned we were tied with Arizona, but give or take, 3/4 positions in the 50 states. We're not at the top, and we've got some room to grow to get better, and I think that's the important point to realize.
Yeah, we're not at the top. Dale, what do you have to say about that?
Well, you have to wonder why Indiana's not even higher than that. You would think that we had, at least from what I have observed, the elections appear to be very, very secure. At least the polling places I'm referring to, from what I've seen. But I don't know, Marty. What are some of the things that they use to judge how secure the elections are?
Well, that's a good question. I think too it varied a little bit, but they looked at things like whether the votes could be backed up with paper ballot. We've all heard about the machines that have been hacked or are connected only to the internet and have no ability to be backed up. We've looked at controversy. There's been comments about controversy at the polling place. We had one of our COS team members, if you recall, a few weeks ago mentioned that she walked in to be a judge at the polling place, and they asked her what her party was, and she said Republican, and they said, well, this is for Democrats only, and which is not the case. And so a number of things like that. I think too that absent any type of an auditable trail, it leaves room for corruption. And this is not new to our state or any other state. This has been going on for many, many years, and there's evidence on both sides of the fence politically. So,
Wow.
Yeah, Cheryl cited one study, and Marty cited another study, and different organizations rank election security different ways, but in each study, Indiana's in the top 20. So we're near the top, but we have a long way to go, and things need to get better. And I'm wondering, George, what are your thoughts on election integrity in the great state of Indiana?
Well, I agree that we're better than most and not as good as some. There's a group that walked around and did a lot of polling, door-to-door kind of thing. Diane Gomez, previous state director, spearheaded part of that. And there were some real horror stories that came out of that. Going up to houses and asking if, they're looking at their paperwork and they say, is this Joe the plumber that lives here, and did you vote? And they say, yeah, we voted, but we're not Joe the plumber. Just all kind of different horror stories and things. So it really kind of makes you wonder, who's really watching over all of this.
Yeah, and I think one of the issues is when a voter dies, there's no automatic way to get their name off the voting list. And when a voter moves out of state, I mean, I've changed states. I've moved from one state to another, and the thought never occurred to me to call the election board of my old residence and say, hey, I don't live there anymore. Take me off the voting list, And so there's a lot of people on the voting list who are either dead or they don't live there anymore, So there's all kinds of things that are happening. Ken, I see your hand was up there. What do you have to share?
Yeah, John, we've got a caller calling in. I think he might have something to contribute or ask a question here.
Hey, our first caller
regarding this segment. So go ahead, caller. I think you had a question or a comment. Bit of a delay, I think.
1001, 1002, 1003.
And then when we go and try to purge records of deceased people and stuff, we get stomped on. What are you doing that for?
Yeah, you're removing voters from the voting list.
Right.
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah. Well, while we're waiting for the caller out to the last point that was made, I had a question directed at an event I was at. Was directed to a senator.
Yeah, Dale, hold on. Yeah, apparently we've got a delay in the phone system. Yeah, Dale is trying to get through. Go ahead, try again, Dale.
Dale's the caller.
Not you.
Not me.
Can you hear Dale now?
No, we don't hear him.
Okay.
Well, they say technology is great when it works.
Anyway,
okay.
Somebody had talked to this senator, I guess, in the weeks prior about making some of this responsibility when people move out of state, the responsibility of the title company to report it to the election board. That because they're dealing with titles, they would identify who left the state and who moved into the state. And apparently the senator responded that he checked with the Secretary of State's office, and there were some legal issues that prevented that from happening, something with the way the title company was chartered within the state charter. But the guy went on to say that how frustrated he was because he had two kids who had left the state respectively 8 years ago and 9 years ago, and he still gets their voter ID card for verification every election. And he's called and tried to tell them that they're no longer in the state. The kids have called and they are still on the voter ID logs. And then another person piped up and she said the same thing, that her kids have been gone 6-7 years and they're still there. And she's called and they won't take them off. So, the fact that they're just on there along with probably, people that are dead in Chicago, who knows, but
yeah. The fact remains that I believe Indiana's elections are secure, but they're not as secure as they need to be or as secure as they can be. And Ken, is our caller going to be there this time?
No caller right now. I asked him to try calling back in a little bit, but we've got a comment or a question from
let's see
Susan regarding the election. Was wondering whether one of us could answer this question.
Was there an audit of Indiana election results from 2020? Who has an answer to that?
I do.
Let's go to Gary. He hasn't had a chance to talk yet.
Yeah, it's my understanding that it would be impossible to audit all of the results. And so no official audit has been done. There have been some surveys to verify results, and those surveys, as I think George mentioned, found discrepancies. So there's a reason to have a more thorough examination of the results, but it's not really possible to do a full audit.
Yeah, I think, Marty, were you going to say the same thing or something?
Gary's absolutely right, especially given the fact that we've got 30 to 40% of our machines are the Dominion type that cannot be audited. So, yeah,
Dominion, bad reputation from the 2020 election. Well, I want to move ahead with the next question so that our viewers can get in on this. What can we do as citizens to help ensure election integrity in Indiana? And let's see, I haven't heard from Rick. I haven't heard from Rick yet. Do you have an idea, Rick?
A few ideas, I guess. One of the things that I did during the 2020 election was went and worked the poll and just observed how things were going and trying to keep an eye on things and, participate that way. And I think what you said earlier too about keeping your own information up to date, but just,
Yeah.
those are two ways. But I think probably the most important way of that would be to, contact the local election officials and ask questions about it, and just so they know that somebody's out there paying attention, and they know you're watching. Just you don't have to be aggressive with it. Just call and ask questions so they know we're out here watching and we're interested in making sure we have free and fair elections.
Yeah, Marty.
Yeah, I would add too that just to make people aware, this is a county by county issue.
Yeah.
So it is not statewide. Don't assume that people are doing it and it's going to be along the state. It's every county. So every county needs to be watched. Every county needs to be questioned, and getting people to be a judge, to be a poll watcher, to work the polls is a great way to start. To keep our eyes and ears open on what's going on.
Yeah. Okay, Ken, what you got?
We have Dale trying to attempt to call in again. He's got stepped away from his computer this time. Maybe we'll be able to get through. Dale, are you there?
Okay. Well, we still don't hear him.
Still don't hear him. Okay, Dale.
The Dale on the screen has his hand up.
No, I just want to tell everybody, once again, this call-in feature is a brand new feature that we're implementing on this roundtable tonight. So bear with us, folks, as we try and work through on this feature. So
we will make it work.
Can we relay the message? Can you relay the question?
I think Ken, you might ask him to input the question.
Yeah, I'll have him text it in, and we'll see what happens here.
Okay. George, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was looking at the comments here, and Jerry Rowe, one of our SAA guys, made a nice comment. Said Indiana would be higher, from what I hear, except for the Northwest, which is up around the Chicago area. Yeah, and it went away. Except for the northwest corner and the center of the state, which would be around Indy part. So I think everybody kind of realizes that you get around the upper western third of the state, we start turning pretty liberal. A lot of bleed over from Illinois and Chicago. So Illinois is my home state before I went into service. So
okay,
it's kind of a heartbreak there.
Okay. Well, we're several minutes into this. We've scratched the surface. We've dealt with election integrity, but we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more that could be said, but we have two more topics coming. So we'll wrap this up, and we'll be right back after this Free to Be Free moment by Paul Phillips.
Have you ever watched your federal and state legislators in action? You can watch a federal congressional hearing on C-SPAN and a state legislative committee meeting on your state legislature's website. If you watch closely, you'll notice some of the differences. First, your state legislators actually legislate. They discuss bills and amendments. There's a real legislative process at work. You won't see any of this at the federal level. There you will find a lot of speeches, pontificating, and criticizing the other side of the aisle. Any witnesses at a federal hearing are there primarily for the members of Congress to use as a foil for their grandstanding. I would characterize a state legislative session as legislating. I would characterize a federal legislative session as campaigning. The other difference you will notice is that in a state legislative hearing, there is often public testimony. You are free to give public testimony just by showing up and signing in to testify. You won't see such public testimony at a federal legislative hearing. That's by invitation only. What do you think would happen if you showed up to testify at a federal legislative hearing in the same way you can at a state legislative hearing? At a state legislative hearing, you would be allowed to testify and then go home. At a federal legislative hearing, you would not be allowed to testify and possibly be phoning home for bail money. I recently had an opportunity to interview Indiana Senator Mike Braun, who had previously served in the Indiana General Assembly. I asked him about the differences in his experiences in the state and federal legislature. Let's listen to what he had to say. Now, I'd like to take you back a little bit to your experience in the General Assembly, and then think to your experience in the Senate. I'm curious to know, what are some of the main differences you see between serving in a state legislature and the federal legislature?
I was on Ways and Means, and everything that we spent money on went through committee, and it was done tediously and efficiently. And when we came up with a budget, the top line was always going to be less spending than what we took in. And we believed in rainy day funds and cash reserves. Those two words haven't been in the dictionary here in probably 40 years. And the big difference is we took it through regular order, and now this biggest business in the world, 10 to 12 times the size of Walmart, to get an idea of how big it is, we'll get a huge bill dropped in our lap 2 or 3 days ahead of time that were crafted behind closed doors. I'm an appropriator now. I can't believe they made me one, because they never like my recommendations of living within our means. But I'll keep saying it. So it's different. You by process and by statute and or amendments had to be responsible fiscally. Here, there's none of that.
So here's the point I'm trying to make. Our state legislators are an important part of the U.S. Constitution. The founders trusted them with a number of important powers. That is why they are required in Article 6 of the Constitution to be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. Among the powers the founders granted to state legislators are setting the parameters for elections, choosing electors to choose the president, and, prior to the 17th Amendment, choosing who represents their state in the Senate. These powers are referred to as federal functions. So when I compare the day-to-day operation of the state and federal legislators, it is no wonder that the founders trusted the state legislators with their most important federal functions in Article 5 of the Constitution. The power to propose amendments, a power which is also granted to Congress, and the sole power to ratify amendments. No amendments make it to the Constitution without the approval of 3/4 of the state legislatures. I believe that a critical comparison of our current state and federal legislatures proves that the founders rightly entrusted the state legislatures with the most important powers granted by the Constitution. This should not be a surprise, because first and foremost, our founders were state legislators themselves. Therefore, I would consider our state legislators as the cornerstone of our Constitution.
Okay, everyone, I've had everybody muted here, so need to unmute yourself, or I can do it here. Especially you, John. You're unmuted, John.
Okay. Everybody saw my mouth open, but what I said was thank you, Paul, for that excellent contribution. Very good stuff. Our second topic is activism. The Convention of States is really part of a group called Citizens for Self-Government, and we want to talk about that. I see, Ken, do you have a caller already?
Not a caller, John, but I have the question from the first caller who couldn't get in, Dale. We could back up for just a second on our previous segment to answer his question.
Well, okay. Can we return to the paper ballot standard? So secure for so long. Why do machines dominate? Oh, who wants to take a crack at that? I know there's a movement, or I've seen petitions around the state, paper ballots only. And I'm a believer in that. I do think. Okay, Rick, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I can just speak a little bit from personal experience. When I was doing the poll, working at the poll, and during the training, they were talking about the machines were hooked up to the internet, but it was communicated as being a convenience. And they did that in order to, so that anybody could vote anywhere in their county. You didn't have to be in your precinct. You could, anywhere you were at in the county, you could vote because the machine was connected to the internet. But so I don't think, I think they'd have to go against that idea of making it more convenient for you to vote to go back to the paper ballots, which would obviously be the best thing to do. But I don't know that we could overcome that.
Yeah, some counties. Okay, George, go ahead.
Yeah, for any kind of change to be made in the voting process and procedure, that's a legislative decision. So any rules for that would have to go through our state legislators. Basically a change in the law.
Okay.
So the thing to do is to contact legislatures and.
Yeah. And of course, the other thing that Marty said earlier is also true, that this is a county by county thing. Mm-hmm. And Rick, in my county, the poll books are connected to the internet. We have 10 or 11 or 12 voting centers around the county, and I can go to any one of them, and all the poll books are connected to the internet, so that when I sign in, all the other polling locations will know that I've already voted. But when I vote, it does generate a paper ballot, which is read by a machine, and then the paper ballot is there to back it up in case there needs to be a recount or an audit of the election. So some counties have them both. Okay, thanks. Whoever, Dale was the one who sent us that question. And sorry the phone didn't work, but we'll get it fixed by next month, right, Ken? Okay, we're going to go on to activism now. And I want to call on Gary to start us off with this question. Gary, what does it mean to be an activist?
I think an activist is a person who takes action to express their views, to carry out activities that they think are important in the political process. We're really talking about political activism. The very minimum is voting. And beyond that, it's meeting with legislators, other elected officials, letting them know your opinion and why you believe what you believe, and asking them, for their response to your concerns. So really, it's a matter of making your voice heard, and also generating the same kind of activity from other people, so that everybody doesn't just sit back and watch what happens, but people try to be involved in having the things happen that we, the people, believe are important.
Yeah. Dale.
Yeah, I think in my mind, it's very simple. An activist is anyone doing more than nothing with regard to our country. So whatever your talents are, whatever your skills are, and believe me, so many of us, well, I say that I certainly was. Let me say that I certainly was one of those individuals that did nothing. So now I'm doing something. So I think as long as you're doing anything but nothing, I think you can be considered an activist.
Okay, I want to go to Cheryl. I have a question for you. Gary said meeting with legislators. Cheryl, where in Indiana, which is our primary audience, people who live in the great state of Indiana. In Indiana, where do our senators and representatives live?
Well, they pretty much live at the State House when they're in session.
Well, okay, when they're not in session, where is their home? Where do they live?
Well, it should be in the area that they represent.
Yeah, they live right in your neighborhood, wherever you live. There's a senator and a representative who lives not far from you.
Right.
And do you meet with these people, Cheryl?
Well, I've tried to. What's really cool is we had a Cracker Barrel session a few weeks ago, and 4 people, 2 senators and 2 state representatives attended, and we got to hear, what they thought about things. Mm-hmm. But you can't always wait for those things to come around. So calling your legislators, getting to know your legislative assistants, trying to connect with them so that you can schedule time to meet with your senator or state representative, especially when they're not in session.
And that's the best time, because when they're in session, they are busy. They're
Right.
going to committee meetings, they're going to floor votes. But when they're at home and working in the community, some of these are teachers, some of them are business owners, and you've got 9 months out of the year that the legislature is not in session, and that's when you can meet them. Marty, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I wanted to just put a little different spin on this for most people, because with the time I've spent with these folks, especially this year, I've kind of developed a little bit of a different understanding of things. To be honest, there are only 6 states in this country that have full-time legislatures, and every other one has, a part-time legislature like ours, running anywhere from a couple of months to 4 months. Generally, they're all less than a quarter of the year for the most part, or a third of the year.
Yeah.
And then they also have regular jobs, and they're doing those jobs, also while they're in legislature. They get some time off, obviously, because they're a representative. But and then when the legislature is not in session, they are working on bills. They're working on a number of things. So there is an opportunity, though, because they are your neighbors, just like you said, John. They're your neighbors. You need to look them up. You need to find out where they live. You need to get a chance to talk to them, or make that opportunity to talk with them. And any one of us can start a bill. Any citizen can start a bill by getting in touch with them and asking them to sponsor something, plant that seed, as well as just getting involved in local government. So there's all types of opportunities out there for activism, and they do want to hear from you. They listen to who they hear from, and people want to know why aren't they listening? Well, because they're only listening to people that do contact them and do reach out.
Right.
Yeah, I saw George's hand first, and then Ken.
Yeah, just real quick, I got a perfect example of that. My state senator lives here in LaGrange. She's an attorney, and her office is right across from the courthouse, and I visit her frequently. My state representative, he's a dentist. That's his job, and he's just down the road, maybe 15 miles away in Angola. So they're in your neighborhood. Contact them or their assistants or something, and I've arranged meetings with them, and it's never been a problem. They're very nice and friendly, and they do listen to you.
Yep. Okay, Ken, I saw your hand too.
Yeah, we're going to give this one more try, John. We have a caller calling in. Susan has tried calling in, so we'll see if this works this time. Susan, are you there? Can you hear that?
We don't hear anything.
No.
Okay.
You're not hearing Susan. Okay, we'll try again, Susan. If you want to post your comment or question in the chat, we'll get you pick up there.
Okay, Dale.
I just wanted to, as far as your representative or your senator living in your neighborhood, when I first started in Convention of States, I, like so many that start with us in Convention of States, did not know who my state representative or my state senator, I didn't know their names. And come to find out, once I learned that my state senator lives just a few blocks from me. So we were able to set up a breakfast meeting at a little restaurant just around the corner from her house. And that's where it all started for me. So
pretty cool.
These people really do live right near you. They really do.
Okay, well, I've got another question. I'm going to throw this one to Rick. Hey, Rick, do my elected officials really care what I think about the issues?
Well, from my experience, they certainly do. I used to be one of those that wrote letters and made phone calls and things like that. And I always got pleasant replies back. And, they always seemed to be interested. And, sometimes you get the form letter, but a lot of times I'd get a genuine response, and a comment. But then one of the things I've learned being in COS here is the ability to go visit your legislature, like you say, in the neighborhood or at the Capitol itself when they're in session.
Right. Okay.
So they do care.
Rick, do they vote the way you want them to vote on the issues?
I can't answer that one. I hope so.
Well, we need to track their votes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to another question. What's the best way to make my voice heard? Gary, do you have a thought on that?
I think it's already been mentioned, and that is that personal contact with a legislator or other elected representative and meet with them face to face and try to build a relationship with them so that
Yeah.
you can have greater influence as time goes on.
Yeah, so that you're not just a name attached to an email. George, what are all the different ways that we can contact a lawmaker? Oop, I don't hear George.
Got it. Phone calls are nice. Usually, I don't think you ever really get hold of the legislator directly. You do go through their assistant or their interns.
Yeah.
I mean, you can talk to them, but you got to go through that gateway first. You can imagine, the people that might want to talk to somebody. So they do filter calls and things like that, but then, they're not real strict about it. They're just, they're protecting their, legislator. Another way is emails. Personal handwritten notes is a biggie. All of us have heard many times that they report that they look at those, they read them. Somebody that's going to take the muscle and the effort and the time to write a personal note, it draws attention. That's another big way. They do say they get tons of emails, and probably I don't know if you can really text them or not. But yeah, they say they get tons of emails, and they just get sorted into different files and say, well, we got 45 emails about this subject, we got 29 emails about this one. So the best process, I believe, is either trying to make a phone call, or the personal handwritten note, and then a lot of times they'll spend time at public events, like here in Auburn, they have like these hot air balloon glow events, and my representative, my state senator are always there. I walk by, say, remind them who I am and say hi and how do you do, and take some of the stuff that they're offering, so, that's another way too. And that's a quick and dirty face to face with them.
All right. Very good. Ken, you get the last shot at this one before we close this segment.
Yeah, I was just going to agree. I pretty much was going to mention what George had already stole my thunder, I guess. I was going to mention the handwritten letter or the handwritten note. But at the same time, I did get the comment from or the question from Susan, who was trying to call in. So we'll put that up. We can get that before you move to the next segment.
What's the best way a senior patriot can be active from his or her desk? By senior, I suppose you mean people my age, old folks. Best way to be active from the desk. Dale, you want to give a shot at that one?
I was going to mention, and this kind of ties in with that. Another way that you might possibly be able to talk to your representative or your senator is to stay tuned to future roundtable meetings like this, because we may just, in fact, have some state representatives or state senators on. As a matter of fact, we have had one on earlier. I think it was actually last year.
Yeah,
Senator Liz Braun was a guest that we had on one of our broadcasts. So
yeah,
we're going to try and get more on. We're going to try and get more of them on. So that'll be a good way that'll be another way to possibly connect with them.
Okay, that's good. Marty, what do you have?
Yeah, a great way for somebody who doesn't have a lot of time or ability to get out and about is through our Telepatriot program. We can use Telepatriot activists to get involved. We have Telepatriot efforts. They're not on a regular basis, but when they do come in, anybody signed up to be a Telepatriot will get a message and they can contribute with their phone. There are a couple of technical requirements, smartphone being one of them, but anybody with smartphone can get connected and contribute that way.
All right. And Dale, last word.
We have a lot of opportunities for a senior patriot to be active from his or her desk. If you're into social media, we've got we need people that like to engage in social media platforms. We have opportunities in our newsletter for content writers. We have a lot of opportunities for anyone actually that wants to be active from his or her desk. So stay tuned, because John's going to tell you how to join Convention of States here very soon.
Yeah.
And you'll find out how to make your desires known to us. and we would love to have you as part of our organization.
Okay, well, that's great. Well, thanks to all of you for your input on this segment, and that's a wrap on activism. And we'll be right back after this message from our new COS Indiana Live contributor, Rick Lyon, with The Lion Truth.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rick Lyon, and I'd like to talk to you about self-governance. In a perfect world, self-governance means there is no need for laws, police, prisons, courts, or legislatures, because every individual governs themselves as perfect citizens of a perfect society. This is the highest ideal of true self-governance. Today, self-governance is only a seed of that ideal. Governments are usually ruled by the most physically or economically powerful. Might still makes right. This is the root of our struggle with socialism today. Our right to self-govern versus their right to rule by force. In the 1700s, because the might of the king became too much to bear, the greatest experiment in self-governance began. People became fed up with tyranny, and the escape route became America. Today, there is no undiscovered country to escape to, and our backs are against the wall. America was the first attempt at true self-governance. We are the hope of every person who aspires to the ultimate, and I believe, divine ideal of freedom by self-governance. We are the pattern and the teachers of self-governance to all the world. I worry that we have failed our responsibility as teachers by allowing our enemies to portray us as immoral, evil, and failing. Our accomplishments as a nation prove the benefits and desirability of self-governance over socialist oppression. And that threatens the power of socialists and why we have cancel culture. The good we have done must be erased in order to validate their false narrative. Self-governance benefits all people. It requires cooperation and planning as a group. It promotes appreciation of morality, the relationship between liberty of self and loyalty to others. Liberty is the ability to live our lives the way we choose for our own enjoyment and benefit. Loyalty is the appreciation of membership in a group. Morality is the tempering of unbridled personal liberty by loyalty to the group. Only when we learn the value of loyalty can we realize true liberty. These are indeed times that try men's souls, but that's the purpose of such times. Strong, noble, and experienced characters are forged out between the anvils of necessity and the hammers of anguish. Leadership and wisdom come from problem solving, not from a life of ease and tranquility. Self-governance first requires governance of the self. This is the meaning of government of the people, by the people, for the people. Notice that governing of the people is done by the people. This requires education of the people, action and participation by the people in government, and the desire to do good for the people. True self-governance begins with parents teaching their children morals, values, ethics, and responsibility as individual family members. It requires schools that teach children their civic responsibility as citizens of the group. It requires religious leaders and institutions to teach the true value and real purpose of each of us and all of creation. Freedom is a God-given right, and it cannot be taken away. It can only be given up. Given up by agreement, by fear, or by indifference. It is up to we, the people, to accept and assume the high responsibilities of representative self-government. When Abraham Lincoln spoke the words that he believed would be little known nor long remembered, he declared that we owe it to our dead to preserve self-governance. Let us commit ourselves from this day forward, especially as members of Convention of States, to preserve it for our children. And that is the Lion Truth. Thank you.
Good
Hey.
Lord, Rick, that was excellent. That was beautiful, man. Good job.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, thanks, Rick, for that contribution.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, Rick is a brand new contributor for us, so that was his first contribution.
Look
So,
forward to more.
Yeah, we've got. He's already logged in a few more for us. So.
All right, very good.
Good job.
Well, we're going to move into our third and final big segment, which is education. Now, Cheryl, these gentlemen surrounding you on the screen are on the round table every month, and this is your one shot. So I'm making sure you get to answer every question.
Okay.
So my first question, I'm going to throw to Cheryl. She's the first one. Why is Convention of States interested in education?
Well, I think everybody can agree. Everything that happens in the schools ultimately affects every citizen in one way or another. And we have seen that with the mask mandates, the vaccines and everything. So I think it's our responsibility to engage in activities that will affect policy in our schools, specifically attending board meetings, which I started doing last summer. So it's very important for us to know what's going on.
Okay, so that's a good answer to the question, why is COS interested in education? Dale, do you have another answer?
Convention of States started out as an educational organization.
Yeah.
Constitutional education, and of course, specifically Article 5. So Convention of States has been an educational organization, and education has been a priority for Convention of States ever since its inception. Now, as time has gone on, of course, this has evolved beyond just teaching the Constitution, although we still do that, and that is still a priority. But now we're into the activist area. We're into, and of course, like Cheryl was talking about, it's taken on a different look in the area of education, and it needs to be, and that's what we need to do. We need to be looking at our educational systems.
Yeah, and in the last year or two, with so many kids doing remote schooling, moms and dads and grandparents have seen some of what's being taught and what's not being taught in the schools. And so Convention of States is concerned about the generation that's coming up and what they're learning about what it means to be a republic, a constitutional republic. And so that leads me into my next question. And I want to throw this one to Gary. What are some of the problems in education? I'm talking K to 12. What are some of the problems in K to 12 education that need to be addressed?
John, I think the biggest problem is that we have, in effect, a top-down bureaucracy running education. I talked to a gentleman several years ago who'd been on the school board, and the superintendent that they had hired was happy to tell him that the only real power he had was to hire or fire that superintendent, and that after that, the superintendent ran the school. And so the superintendents, their number one job, believe it or not, if you look at their job description, is to try to get more money for education. So we're paying them to go to the legislature and say, give us more money. And it's a big top-down bureaucracy. We need to figure out how to reestablish local control over schools and over education. And it's not a process that it's going to be anything easy. It's a huge problem to overcome that bureaucracy and turn the current system on its head.
Yeah. George, do you know of any other problems that we need to address in K to 12 education?
I'm sorry. I got a big warning and said my battery was about to die. So I had,
Talk fast, man. Talk fast.
Well, I got the charger plugged in. That's what I left for. I had to find my charger. I missed. I'm sorry. I missed a lot of what Gary said. So
okay, let's just go to Marty. Marty, what else would you say is a problem that needs to be fixed in education?
Well, there's been a number of issues that have crept up in the last couple of years with programs that have come in from the federal level through big donations by Gates Foundations, George Soros groups, things like this, and they've found a seed in what's called social emotional learning programs, which interestingly enough have really hit a peak during this pandemic because people requiring through the health department mandates from the state level, state health department, down to the state board of education, down to the school boards, all using it as an excuse to put masks on kids. We've got an enormous mental health situation that has been created with these masks on kids. Young kids, especially, it's their formative years. They need to look at people when they speak. They need to see facial gestures. You can't do that when everybody's got masks on. It's led to all kinds of things. And this social emotional learning component has really delved into this emotional side, supposedly trying to identify early mental health, but it's a big data collection process, starting with kindergarten kids. And there's things about how do they feel, and it leads to indoctrination about critical race theory and about gender biases, and young kids are questioning their gender more than any other time in history, and it's just gotten out of control. And again, it's an influence that's coming in from money that's been given from federal level down. They've given it to all the states. The states have accepted it. They have to then teach this stuff. So the best way we can get, we've said it's not in our Constitution. The Department of Education is not in our Constitution at the federal level. And, it should be controlled at the state, and we should keep the feds out of it. And this is one good reason to talk to your school boards and try to convince them to not take any federal money, because it's too easy to influence. You want your board, your school board, and your teachers teaching what your state requires and what your teachers are free to teach as teachers, and not be influenced by anything else.
Okay, Ken.
Yeah, I would just add to that I think we also have a problem. I mean, I agree with Marty. The federal state education department, we there's no need for it, and the money, certainly it's like anything else, follow the money and you usually find the corruption. But I would just add to that I think, in my own observation, and again my own personal opinion, is I think we have a big problem with teacher unions. They're heavily democratic and very political, and I don't think that these unions should have as much control over what teachers do and think. And it brings up a comment that Susan also made concerning a teacher that said that it was his constitutional right not to teach the Constitution last year. That was coming from her granddaughter's teacher who said that. So where does that come from? Is that the teachers' unions, or is that just a personal teacher's opinion that he doesn't have to teach the Constitution? I don't know. I'm again just forwarding some of my own opinions on this.
Yeah, I've read the Constitution. I think all of us have, and I don't remember anything in there that says you have a right not to teach the Constitution. Cheryl, your hand has been up too.
Oh, well, that's okay. I just think that the school boards need to demonstrate more transparency. But I can see why they would take the federal funding. Our county alone got over $11 million. And I asked them how they were spending it at one meeting, and lo and behold, this actually helped. They did present a list of what they were spending it on. However, they also had a lot of building projects. They wouldn't have been able to do that if they hadn't gotten that money. But I never could get evidence from them, or they never presented evidence that this was helping with the COVID crisis. And they can't, because there isn't any.
Okay.
Yeah, and Cheryl, you bring up a good point, and I would suggest to anybody that talks to their school boards to challenge with that exact question, because with that federal money comes very explicit things that they have to spend the money on and what things they cannot spend the money on.
Right.
And if you're being told that they can spend it on a general building fund, that is a thing that they cannot spend the money on. It has to all go toward these programs or toward COVID or, toward things that COVID impacted. And they've been very explicit. So a lot of school districts are flush with cash right now because they literally can't spend the money on those things very well because they didn't experience some of those things. Yet they got the money.
One of those things that they identified as spending the money for was to enhance the bus garage. Now, I personally don't see the net worth in doing that and how that's going to eliminate a virus.
Right.
I just can't justify it.
Well, the bus won't catch the virus. Okay. Yeah. Well, let's move on to our next question. And it is, what can I do to help improve education in my local schools? George, I'm going to go to George, but I saw Dale's hand first.
Oh,
Dale?
You going to George or me?
Dale.
Oh, me. Okay. I want to know, I got two things to say on this. Whatever happened, I heard this said one time during the COVID thing. I heard it said that there ought to be cameras in every classroom, just like there should be a camera on every police officer. Whatever happened to that? I never heard anything more about that. Does anyone know?
I don't know, but I do think the teachers' unions were opposed to that.
I'm sure. I'm sure they would be. Yes.
Yep.
I think there was an issue with minors as well. If you notice, whenever a minor's involved, their face is usually, clouded out or something, and now you have a whole classroom of minors. So
that's a legitimate concern right there. Yes. Yes. Okay, George.
Let George go. I want to come back and make.
Okay, George. What can I do to improve education in my local school?
Well, education is a kind of a bugaboo about mine. I think that's an excellent idea that we need to pursue. But the first step in improving education in your local schools is to educate yourself. Yes. All right. Read the Constitution and, spend a little bit of time doing some research and digging in. This country has an amazing history. So many things that we have no clue about. And if we're going to teach our kids, know what's going on in school, if what they're saying is bad or good or whatever, we don't know what our rights are. We don't know if they're being violated. Right. So to me, the first thing to do to improve education in anywhere, in your family, in your schools, in your community, is to educate yourself. That's all I say about that.
Well, thank you. Dale, you wanted to say something too.
I just wanted to make the comment that, folks, we got to save the public education system. We just got to save it. My son and his wife have 5 children, and they've been in private schools. And we were talking the other night about the cost of them having children in private schools. It's unbelievable. I would have never been able to have afford that during my working career. So we have got to save our public schools. It's just it's got to be an alternative, a good alternative for people. And there's a lot of work to be done. So that's all I wanted to say.
All right, that's pretty good. Anyone else have a comment, an answer to this question? Cheryl.
Yeah, there are so many things that we can do as individuals, but one thing that, this has been a real struggle for me, is getting parents engaged in what's going on in the schools. I have an email loop that I send out information every month after the school board meeting and tell them what was said. And, I even had a parent email me back and say, please take me off this loop. And I'm like, why do you not want to know what's going on? So becoming engaged in the school board meetings, talking to other parents. I don't have any kids in our county, in school. My kids are all grown, but I am a taxpayer and what they do affects me. and ultimately every citizen across the state.
Yep.
So we need to speak out. We need to become engaged. We need to talk to other parents, other taxpayers, and just educate them too on the issues.
Okay, these are all very helpful suggestions. And I'm going to call a wrap on that for our conversation on education. And now, as we move toward the invitation to join Convention of States, here's a video of some young people giving their answers to the question, is the federal government broken?
Just say bye to everyone, because I'm going to remove everyone during this video. So I just want to say thanks to everyone for participating tonight.
Thank you. Good show.
Thank you.
Our government is definitely broken.
The EPA is totally out of control.
I mean, VA is completely broken.
If a private business were to run things like the government, they would be out of business like that.
The tax system is ridiculous.
And how are we supposed to pay for that and our student loans and find a place to live with no job? I mean, it's almost as if nobody really cares what happens to us anymore.
There are so many problems that we have, and that's just going to be placed on us.
My generation especially, we need to lead, because enough is enough. DC needs to listen, and we need to take the power back to the people.
And so I invite you to join Convention of States right now by visiting our website, conventionofstates.com. That's conventionofstates.com. There you can join Convention of States by signing the petition. And if you really want to make a difference, on that page, you'll find a Take Action button near the top of the screen. You click that, and it'll take you to this page. Take Action takes you to this page where you can click Become a Leader. And there you can apply for a leadership position. So you see, now is the time to visit conventionofstates.com, click Take Action, and help us make history. Well, that brings us to the end of this month's Roundtable. Before I say goodbye, I want to share our email address again. If you have any questions at all about Convention of States, you can email them to us at raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. That's raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. I also want to remind you to tune in every Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern for our weekly broadcast, COS Indiana Live, with our cool Slido polling. You'll love it. Mark your calendar. You don't want to miss our next Roundtable on the 4th Monday of March. That will be March 28th at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'm John Ackerman for COS Indiana Roundtable. Good night.